You do realise this is being recorded.
You've
got
got
We're actually live.
And live.
Oh, I just called everyone a smarty pants.
So I'm confused because I was focusing on us going live. Hi, Facebook, we're live. So, right, so to catch everyone up, we are a part of our staying together, being in touch, staying positive, go team. We had a quiz night a few weeks ago, and we've got one on Friday night, and Emily is the quiz master this time. So to start off with, Emily thinks she deserves a crown.
I do. I was just explaining about how it's taken me like 2 hours to prep this. I definitely think I deserve a crown, so I'm going to make one tonight.
And then 8 rounds with 8 questions. Emily thought was 80 questions.
Oh, don't tell them that. That was a mistake. Like, I'm not that stupid, I swear.
Rainbox fail.
Oh my god!
And she's the quiz master.
Said that.
But it might be the reason for that is that if you come up with, I'm confused. You've come up with answers for our answer. You've come up with extra answers.
I know you all, and I know that if I ask you a question, you're going to say, "Oh, if I add this bit onto the answer, can I get an extra point?" So I just think, right, okay. So I wrote down the answer, and then there were some questions where technically there could be a longer answer, I guess. So I wrote down the main answer plus some extra information for that answer, so that when you ask me if that's correct, then I'll have it all written down and I'll know, rather than just knowing the main answer and not the extra answers.
So
wow. Taking it seriously, isn't she?
I am.
It's turned into QI or something.
Yeah. I might have a theme tune.
You're going to be a hard actor.
No, it won't be yours, will it? It'll be ripped off someone else.
So you want a crown and a theme tune now?
Yeah, I might have an entrance. No, I'm joking. I am going to have a crown. I might not make it. I have a flower crown upstairs. I could just use that, but I think it needs to say Quizmaster on it, and obviously I can't really attach like Quizmaster to the letters of to a flower crown because it'll hang in my face.
You have to make sure you write them backwards, Emily, so it's okay for us when we see them.
I was going to be like Mean Girls. I would definitely do that.
So is that the one I've got to watch? Is that on the list?
I'm not saying anything.
Yes, right, that's the one you've got to watch, yes.
I'm not saying anything.
Mean Girls. I think you might like it, actually.
He's seen it before, haven't you? You told me.
No, he hasn't, no.
I'm sure you have. I think you're just saying that now because you're on Facebook.
I can 100% say I've definitely never seen that film.
So the great thing about, so let's put a serious slant on this now. The great thing about doing stuff like this is that, and it's funny, some of the feedback I've had from people that have tuned into the live lunches, they're getting to see different, like they're seeing the dynamic between us all. And doing things like the quiz night and the fact that we're swapping over who the quiz master is, and not just kind of getting something off the internet or buying something off Amazon and doing it that way, is that we are getting a real insight into everyone. So part of the joke this morning has been that Mark basically needs to watch, what is it, Miss Congeniality, Mean Girls,
one and two, Miss Congeniality,
Legally Blonde,
and Legally Blonde 1 and 2.
Oh, is there 2 of them as well? Oh, great.
Legally Blonde.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I'm never going to get all those done tonight.
Love Island, Mark.
You're going to be up all night, Mark.
Yeah, I've checked that out. There's 6 seasons of Love Island to watch tonight as well.
Yeah, so
they're like an hour each, the episodes, just so you know, sometimes longer.
Okay.
Basically, you've run out of time.
But it's a really good kind of like insight into the different characters in the team, and that kind of, getting to know each other on a more sort of personal level it is interesting. It really is. And then it makes me look at our social media content and go, right, are we really we talk a lot about personalizing that content and making it an insight into your business and the personal brand piece and that kind of stuff. And one of the things that it's made me reflect on is the fact that I'm not suggesting we're going to start posting little snippets of Love Island every week on Facebook now, but are we actually bringing in who we are into our content, or is it as in us as a team? Because I think we're quite good in that I'll go, we need to share this, and it will be something that I care about, but not necessarily something that Jane cares about, or Pam cares about, or Mark cares about, or so it's quite interesting. It's flagged up a few things that, from a content perspective, although we've had a bit of a giggle over these films and God knows what else everybody's going to put in there, and whether or not she'll have glitter on her crown or not. But it raises an interesting point in terms of making that content really personal for us.
I think so. I think it did surprise me, actually. Jane said Jane's a massive super fan of Legally Blonde.
I am, and I don't know why.
She was quoting it yesterday, and I was like, "Whoa, she's gonna smash this test."
Gonna do the bend and snap. Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
maybe not on video.
We can live stream that. I mean, we're live streaming now. If you want to crack on, Jane.
No, all right.
Cool. So, right. So, other than quizzes, what have you been up to this week?
Oh, who wants to go first? Oh,
Silence.
Go on, Pam, what have you been up to? Share with the class.
I have, well, apart from just my sort of regular jobs, I've had a few sales calls this week, and I was part of the Daventry Retail Forum this week as well, which was quite interesting. So all the retail stores in Daventry have now opened, as they have, non-essential ones. But actually that wasn't what the discussion was about this week. It was about some funding from the government on kind of like pedestrianising the high street. So that was quite the topic of the day. It was quite an interesting forum, to be honest. It's very interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, other than that, it's just normal stuff. I've had some training. I'm going to be co-hosting business community networking group for Daventry next Wednesday.
you need a crown for that, Pam, as well.
So I was doing some training with Paul on Monday, and so
Paul's here as usual. So
hopefully,
shout out to Paul.
hopefully I can operate Zoom properly. That's all I've got to do, really. So.
Cool. And what about social media news? Anything popped up on your radar in that scenario?
Well, yeah, we were in. Yeah, actually, I was saying to you this morning, there was something about that I was looking at about Facebook groups today. Because actually, weirdly, on my business book club last night that I was on, we were talking about Facebook groups, and I interestingly saw an article this morning that said about that's the sort of the parenting. There's parenting groups on Facebook now that you can kind of add some like badges to what kind of parent that you are, and you can ask questions and kind of like group up with people to type in anonymous questions, right? Now I was thinking, because I'm not very, on a personal level, I'm not very vocal on Facebook. And I, if you've got a personal question, especially as a parent, that you don't maybe want to people to see who you are. So I thought this was quite a nice feature that, that you're sort of, that you can ask things anonymously. I quite like where Facebook's going at the moment. I've had a love-hate relationship with it. And I just think this adds again to the more sort of community side of things. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's been a massive push towards community, and every few months they kind of roll, I say probably every 6 to 8 months, they seem to roll out another kind of like, I don't know, like just like another load of changes into groups, or not changes, but added functionality.
Yeah.
So, the last round of changes were very much kind of business-like. So it was like the introduction of a mentorship kind of program within Facebook groups and stuff like that, which I thought was quite interesting. We've had things like, if it's like a training group, you can create units and stuff like that as well to categorize some of the posts. Being able to tag posts as being on a particular topic, and I think it's all really useful, but it's all very kind of business orientated. Whereas the last few changes, and I think this one as well, has been very much about the actual, it's changes that feed more into communities, and not business communities or networking communities. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one. But I love this idea of actually being being a member of a set of people, a group of people, but actually being able to be open and honest, whilst remaining anonymous.
Yeah.
It actually allows for some really sort of actually quite difficult conversations to take place without it being that someone's being shot down or
Because the little badges are like, like new parent or, parent of teen, and you can actually sort of like, put your badge next to who you are so that people know that kind of like they might be more understanding because, they're also a new parent as well. So they've experienced it. Yeah, I like that. I'm never very vocal in groups, but I think that is really quite reassuring for parents who are wanting to ask quite personal questions and maybe not want to reveal who they are. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Fab. Anyone else seen anything Facebook wise this week, and like sort of news or changes, rollouts that you think might be? Obviously, they've done loads of stuff around the voting thing, but I don't think that's really relevant for our audience at the minute. But has anyone seen anything else?
I have. The one I liked, unfortunately only testing at the moment, but I really hope that it comes here, is at the minute, if you see something while you're scrolling down your feed, you can save it. And a little while after that first came out, they allowed you to save it into different collections. So, you can save some funny videos or, interesting posts or whatever. But they're just testing now how you can then share that with other people. So I was sort of thinking, in a business, if you're all sort of on Facebook and you see things that are relevant to your business, you can start sharing them in a little group for that. And then you can then share that with other people in the business. And there'll be the ability for people to comment on the posts that you've shared in there as well. So you can sort of do that privately and then perhaps then decide between you who was going to share what, maybe on the company page or whatever. So, sorry, my phone's ringing now, so I'm just going to mute myself, sorry.
I wondered what that was then. I was thinking, is the building alarm about to go on? Oh,
it's kind of strange hearing a landline ring.
I know it never rings except when we do this.
Yeah, so the other thing with that, I don't know if we ever mentioned it on the live lunches before, but one of the things I do with Facebook, obviously we're constantly looking at sort of Facebook ads that other people are running to see, what's impactful, what works, that kind of thing. And I quite often, when I see them, I save those adverts, and I have a collection of ads that I think are really good and a collection that I think are really bad, so I can use them as examples in presentations and stuff like that. Whereas, and previously, if I'd seen something that I thought was exceptional, I'd have to essentially share that post with Jenny or share it with Amanda. Whereas now, actually, internally, if we're looking at ads, we can actually just share that collection between ourselves and work that way. So if you are, advertising on Facebook and you're creating adverts yourself, it's a really good tip to actually, when you see an advert and you think, actually, that worked for me, or, it might be the thing is, you tend to get targeted by stuff that you're selling as well. You get targeted by your competitors kind of naturally because you'll have shown interest in the similar things, or you'll have been on similar websites, you like similar pages. So it's quite interesting, the stuff you get served with that is actually really relevant to your brand and your own marketing activities. And of course, if you're using an agency, whether it's us or someone else, and you've got some ads saved that you like, then it makes it much easier for you to go to your agency and say, right, I want to run some ads that look like these, or I want to do ads like that, or that kind of stuff, which is, I think Mark would agree, sometimes we get clients that go, I want to do this, but they're like, this means I want to run some adverts on Facebook, I want to run some adverts on LinkedIn. But actually, when you come down to what do you want to get out of it, what do you want it to look like, the client doesn't necessarily, they're looking to us for that kind of creative, consultative approach. They're looking to us for those ideas, but we need some likes and dislikes from them as a starting point to be able to come up with something that's going to work for them. So yeah, I think that's quite a good tip in itself. Mark, has anything come up this week that
well, Jane actually highlighted something this morning that I'd seen. There was an update to Photoshop, which I hadn't actually downloaded yet. But what it did do, although some of the tools have been there for a little while, it actually made me look at the way that I do some things this morning. So I've been sort of playing with some of the functionality in Photoshop, and it's probably, quickened up some of the processes. Looking at one of the tools I think was added in the last release, but because you get sort of in a habit of doing things in a certain way, that okay, I do this, I use that tool. But actually looking at this update has made me look at the way that I do certain things. So that's been quite good this morning. Took me a little while to get to grips with some things, but there's a couple of little tools in there that are definitely helpful productivity wise, especially cutting out hair.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Emily's perked up now. Or replacing your child with a dog, which Jane does regularly in Photoshop things.
I can't tell you all that.
It's now one click.
Much easier.
To get you back later, Mark.
Yeah.
You're definitely in her bad books now.
I know.
Absolutely.
I know. All I need to do now is start slacking sort of messages through just to fill up her feed, and she'll be well happy.
Yeah.
Sending you angry emojis.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, Mark, sort of on that same point, the fact that you get into a certain habit and a certain way of doing things, I think that can apply across the board. So I've found something that's happened to me previously is that with, say, for example, my contracts, I'll get into a certain way of doing things, certain websites that I look at and that type of thing. And when I've had cover for that, so say there was one time when Jane covered for me because I was on holiday, I came back and Jane said, I was looking sort of through everything that had happened that previous week and saw something that Jane had done. I saw something that Jane had done, and we had this conversation, and anyway, it was just something that was really good, but I'd never thought of it before. And I said to Jane, I don't know why I haven't thought of this before, because it's so obvious. But I think sometimes, and I think, like I said, it's the same for everyone, you do just get into a routine and a way of working, and you have to consciously try to mix that up and think of new things to do, and make sure that you're not just sort of doing the same thing across the board, which can be really hard, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happened this morning. Jane mentioned one tool that had been highlighted, that had been improved in this new version, but then it made me look at the process and see that actually there's another tool that I could have been using for certain things, to make things a lot easier. So yeah, it is. It's one of those things you do think, right, okay, it works like this, it works well for me, and then you think, oh, there's an update. Oh, I don't, I'll have a look at that later. Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, but then you do need to revisit those things and see what is new and what can help you do things better, really.
I think so.
Definitely. It's kind of interesting because last week and this week I've done a lot of presenting, and I mean a lot of presenting. So obviously we had Louise on the live lunch last week. It was her event yesterday, so I did 2 sessions in that, and then there's also like a pitch session in it as well that I did too. Now I had slides ready for the 2 sessions, same as we always do, and I don't know what was wrong, not what was wrong, there was nothing wrong with me, but yesterday morning I just got up and I think I just put on a different head or something. So I left the house with, I'd got my plan and I was sticking with it, and by the time I'd driven like the 3.5 minutes, whatever it is, to here and got out the car, I'd kind of thrown everything out of the window in terms of how I was going to present these sessions. And there's a tool called Menti, yes.
Is it Menti or Mentimeter?
Mentimeter.
Yeah, MENTI.
Yes, and I've never used it before, but the idea of it is that you basically, when you're presenting, you can create like little surveys and things like that. People can follow a link there and then and ask questions. Answer questions, and as they answer them, the questions appear on your presentation. And so I basically I shouldn't tell everyone this, should I, really? But
Why?
basically, like 20 minutes before the start of the day, I went, I'm going to do this instead, and set up this bit of software I'd never used before, and did the pitch. and basically said, right, go to this link and ask the questions now. When I do my session at 12 today, I'm going to answer all your questions. And people did it. They actually engaged. They added the questions whilst the session was happening at 12. We were getting some more questions through there as well. So it was, it was fab. It was really fab. But rather than having the slides like I normally do, I just use a whiteboard. I literally just sat here like this. And it was a tech event. And again, thinking things through afterwards, at a tech event, I sat here with a whiteboard and markers. But it actually worked really, really well. And it was they kind of did a wrap up of the event at the end of the day, sort of like the virtual drinks in the bar at the end of the day kind of thing. And, it got mentioned that, because it was different, and the sessions became very much off the cuff and that kind of thing. And I think sometimes we get stuck doing, I presented pretty much the same content I was going to present anyway, but it was just completely free flow. And all of a sudden I was using cake as an analogy for the LinkedIn algorithm, which I don't think I've ever used cake as an analogy for anything before, but it worked really well. And sometimes you do something just a little bit differently, and all these all this creative stuff starts to happen instead. The only problem with those sessions were the screenshots that
which Paul has just mentioned.
Literally, okay, but I took so many, and the problem is, like, I imagine it's the same for FRS. Okay, they weren't the most flattering, but I think if you took screenshots of me now, they wouldn't be the most flattering.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I think it was so hard. I literally took like 20, probably 25, and I was just sat there going, right, 1, 2. Oh, sorry, I'm doing an impression now. This is what I was doing with my mouse. And anyway, I'm sorry, but I liked them. And I actually, because I obviously tuned into probably half of the first one, because then I had to post about it, so I couldn't watch the whole thing. But I thought it was really interesting. I enjoyed it. And I thought it was, I tuned in on the bit when you were talking about the cake, and that resonated with me because I love cake.
Isn't it weird? You do something differently and you suddenly kind of, all these other ideas pop into your head, and they're not even quite like I said, that was not a formulated idea with the cake thing, but it did work.
I think it was a different way of talking about it. Like, I've heard you talking about it before as like sort of like a building, so like the cement and then the building blocks and that type of thing. And I was like, cake's much more down my street. I think people will prefer cake.
Although it does make you want cake. So you leave the session thinking, I know about algorithms now that drive my social media, but equally, I really want a lemon drizzle.
Cake. Cake.
I quite like that about coaching sessions though. I need to get better at doing it when it comes to a webinar, but I like when coaching sessions, especially working from home, when things haven't gone quite right in a coaching session, and then you have to fully improvise to be able to give the same service and the same information, but just in a different way. And you've just got to think off the cuff and just do it there and then. And you're like, hang on a minute, I know, in a perfect way we can do this. And you always end up with like analogies that you kind of walk away from and go, that's an odd analogy.
Sometimes I come out with things, and as I'm on the call, so I can't. All I really want to do is stop and write down what I've just said, because I'm almost like gone, oh my god, that was brilliant. I need to use that. And at the end of the call, I do this. So I've got no idea what I said.
I felt like that yesterday in a coaching call, because we just couldn't get something to work, and I can't even think what my analogy was, and I did come away from that going, that was fantastic, Pam. Well done. Didn't I do good there? You did say at the end, well, that's a great session. I was like, yeah, I amazed myself even. Yeah,
it's been an interesting week in terms of doing things differently, definitely. I think what's interesting for me as well is like the conversations we're having with clients and the kind of the inquiries that are coming in at the minute. We've seen this trend towards email marketing, and more specifically towards like drip campaigns and email nurture campaigns. And I think that's quite interesting because, again, people are, it's kind of like this halfway house between people trying to do something differently, but also going back to basics at the same time. Because this idea of a nurture campaign, you download something, you get a series of emails afterwards, or whatever that initial trigger is that creates this series of series of emails being delivered. That's not a new idea. It's not a new idea, but yet so many people are going, I need to change things. I need to take everything up a level. I need to market to my database differently. What am I going to do? That's the thing everyone's seemingly wanting to implement at the minute. And I think that's quite interesting. I'm just sort of thinking that me and Amanda have had a conversation on that. Me and Jane have had a conversation on it as well, in terms of sort of the technology behind it and sort of how it works. And I think there is, when you're, Amanda, you've been tasked with writing a few of these kind of email sequences for our clients as well. So is there anything in terms of that you can offer if anyone is looking at creating that?
Yeah, so you're right. So my copywriting has shifted a little bit. So I've had a big flurry of websites when we had a flow of those. So that's sort of dying down slightly at the moment. Still got a couple to finish. But instead, what's replaced it is the email marketing. So yeah, if people are planning on doing that, as you say, it's not necessarily a new thing to have an email campaign that drip feeds. But I think it's new to a lot of businesses. A lot of businesses have done email marketing, but they're always just quite sales focused. They don't follow the sales funnel. They don't follow the client journey, where you're trying to raise that awareness before you pique their interest and then get them to buy. So, the first emails that I would suggest are literally just kind of very soft. This is who we are. This is what we do. Here's something you might like. And then it kind of moves them along to, well, if they open that email, it triggers email number 2. So in a lot of these email platforms, MailChimp is our one of choice. They allow you just to automate that, and it's not difficult. It's really not difficult. Again, it's not difficult when you know how, but we can teach people how, or they can Google how. And it just, takes people along that journey. And it might be something that's, initially just soft touch to start with. Look at this, like our Facebook page. And then as you move further and further along the journey, you get to the point where they are expecting your email almost, because they know it comes in at Friday at 11 o'clock. And then they're ready to press the button and hit purchase. But one of the really interesting things you and I picked up on this week with one of our coaching clients was just going even further with the data on the emails. So we were looking at people who'd opened a specific email, but then the time that they'd been opening it. So there was one recipient in particular who'd opened the email about a dozen times. And there was a lot of them were timestamped at 5 a.m. So this guy's obviously getting up early, part of the 5 a.m. club. Maybe he's an entrepreneur who's kind of like, I get up, I work out, then I do my, then I start my day's work. A lot of normal people would probably still be in bed, frankly, by then. But this guy, he was all over it. So it kind of led to us thinking, well, why don't we see if we need to come up with an email chain that is for the early risers? So whilst I'd say plan your campaign, make sure you've got some flex in there as well. So if I'm doing a campaign that's 12 emails long at the moment, I've written the first 4. I've got the subjects in mind for the remaining 8.
You want Emily to check your maths?
Oh, yeah, can you do the arithmetic for me on that?
That was an innocent mistake, okay? Anyway.
I mean, obviously things can change, things can change in the world at the moment. But you might want to tweak kind of what you're doing and what you're sending and at what time. But for these people that are the 5 a.m. club, it might be you're not pouncing on them then. It just might be you're sending something tailored to say, hey, you don't know if you're like us and you get up in the morning because you want to start your day early and refreshed, and it feels like you're really speaking to them. So it's that whole personalization piece as well. It's just really moving them along. So as soon as they're ready to buy something, they don't go anywhere else but you.
Yeah. The personalization thing's really, really interesting. So, I don't want it to come across in this particular episode that we, all we do is pick on Emily. but
Yes.
but. So we have this thing where we tease her a little bit about her online shopping habits. And
Yes.
basically, if something's sent to Emily as a featured product,
Trending.
Trending. It's a
Sorry.
trending product. The wording is important.
if it's a trending product, Emily is there. It's, in fact, if it's a trending product, that item's been dispatched already. It's on its way.
Yeah.
She's
You're making me look really bad.
as long as Emily's partner doesn't watch this, we'll be fine. But basically, it's that personalization, and I think it is much easier to create the personalization when you're in that kind of B2C environment, because people can look at Emily's purchasing behaviors. Maybe she's always buying stuff at a certain, or her purchases tend to be at a certain point in the month. Maybe it is that she tends to buy those trending products rather than sort of standard products, and actually that information gets fed to her in a way where they know she's going to click that button. And
You're clever.
it's
They got me too, to be fair.
See, and I wasn't going to mention that, but
Emily made me buy a trending product, and now I'm on their mailing list. So I'm like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's a trending.
But the thing is to take that relationship, if you like, and that learning and apply it in a B2B model. It is possible. It's just that we have to think about that data a little bit differently. It's not about the time that we buy, it's about the time that we open those emails. And that particular client, they were in financial services, and the information that they were providing was to do with sort of changes in the market, was it like a monthly or a quarterly report on changes in the stock market? So actually the people engaging with that content, if we pay attention to, it's had X number of clicks, if we take a sample of that and find out that when people are reading that information, it tends to be on a Saturday afternoon, then all of a sudden there's something there we can really, really understand about that audience, that if we wanted to do some paid adverts on LinkedIn, for example, to try and get new investors in, onto that client base, then, that, Saturday, maybe Friday, Saturday is the time to be running those adverts and forget the rest of the week, and just put all your budget into those 2 days, knowing that it's within a window of time that people want to consume that information. But I think from a B2B scenario, we can kind of get guilty of, well, that's B2C and that's B2B. And so they're completely different. And we don't necessarily, one doesn't learn from the other one enough. That's my 2 penneth.
very wise, Christina.
Thanks. You're gonna ask me for a pay rise now.
Just to pay for those products.
Yeah. Cool. So what else has been going on? What else has been happening this week? Did you see the announcement about Twitter yesterday? I'm really excited.
Yes.
I've seen mixed opinions on it. So you're really excited about it. I've seen other people going, who thought this up? It's awful. So yeah, tell everyone about it.
Okay, so I think either you're into voice noting or you're not. Okay, so that's the first thing. So I actually send, okay, so what's happening is Twitter is rolling out this ability to tweet voice clips. So let's say you've got something you want to say, rather than having to type it out, you can literally record your voice, and I think it's 140 seconds, and you can tweet that voice clip. The way that it shows on Twitter is basically, it almost creates like an image, like a audio card, if you like, and it will have your profile image in the middle of it. So it's not massively visual, but if you think from a brand perspective, that appearing in your feed every now and then on a regular, consistent basis, I think is quite strong in itself. Also, audio, so many marketing things are now going down that audio route because of like Alexas and Google Home and all that stuff that you already know I don't like anyway. But yeah, this kind of the age of voice, that's where we are now. Everyone's thinking, podcasts are on the rise. There's just so many pieces to it. you know, we've been able to send voice clips to each other on like Facebook Messenger for ages. We can send voice clips on LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn messaging service as well. WhatsApp, I use voice notes in that all the time to people. In fact, I sent one to Amanda yesterday, but I'm not sure I'd sent one to her that way before. But yeah, just, you know, sometimes there's just not enough time. So actually, like if I'd have typed the message to Amanda, I didn't have time to type the message, but to kind of like verbally vomit down the phone at her. But it worked. Within seconds, I had what I needed, because it is all about me, as we know. So
That's just because I'm efficient.
Yeah, but it's because I communicated efficiently.
Amanda didn't agree with that. She just laughed and smiled.
She also told me when I needed to take a comfort break to be as quick as I possibly could. And, you know, that's kind of pressure I can do without, frankly.
I was very excited, all right? I was
Hurry up, go quickly.
I was
That's a lot of pressure.
Again, that's because I'd done the last minute thing with the whiteboard and I needed to make sure it was framed right and that writing wasn't backwards. I'm needy, okay, we've established this. We've established.
Cool thing that we... Oh, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, sometimes I want to tweet something and I know it's going to be longer than the characters I've got. And then you're thinking about threaded tweets. And I have mixed feelings about threaded tweets, to be honest. But the thing with the voice note is that if the voice note goes over the 140 seconds, it's automatically going to thread the tweet. So it almost creates like an opportunity for, it's almost like a, you know, Twitter to start off with, people thought of it as microblogging. It's almost going to become a micro podcasting equivalent. And I think, personally, I think that's quite an interesting concept.
It's an interesting concept, but do you think it's also a bit, well, I feel like in the wrong hands, it's going to be quite dangerous.
I think there'll be a lot of rants on there.
Yeah, a lot of rants.
A lot of ranting people,
yeah,
typing on there.
Yeah, but I think
audio, God, no.
Yeah, but those people, they'd be typing it anyway.
They would, but it's going to come back and bite them even more. You know, if people are kind of picking them out for being trolls or abuse, or I don't know, even people in the public eye. You know, you do look at people in the public eye sometimes and think, oh, what are you doing? Read the room. Why have you tweeted that?
Certain political leaders with a bad tan, yeah.
Exactly. So, but it's still interesting, though, as you say. I think it'll be interesting to see how it's received.
Yeah.
Do you know about? Oh, sorry. I was going to say, do you know? Because I heard about the announcement, but I didn't look too much into it. So obviously, when you talk, sometimes you pause or say or something like this. Is that going to be picked up in the tweet? So is it going to literally be exactly what you've said?
It will be the audio. So if you want to send a voice note on WhatsApp, you like press and hold and record, and then release, it sends the voice note.
Right.
So I imagine it's going to be like that. It's rolling out at the minute. I haven't had chance to check my app again since about 7 o'clock this morning, but certainly I haven't got the update yet. It's going to be rolling out. Well, they've said over the next week, which, you know, it could take a month for everyone to get it, maybe even longer. But yeah, I'm quite interested to see how it, you know, when it rolls out, how people use it. I've seen Matt Navarra, I've seen one of his tweets that have included it, and yeah, like I said, I just think I do think it's an interesting concept. I do wonder how people are going to engage with it.
I wonder how it's going to work from a business perspective, like if a company wanted to use it, how that would work, because if it was, say, you or I that wanted to use it, it could be quite opinionated, I guess, whereas from a business point of view, you don't necessarily want to put your own opinions on that.
I wonder how, so like I said, until I can play with it, I don't know, but I I'm wondering if you'll be able to upload clips rather than just recording directly into the app.
That's what I was going to
That
ask.
would
if
make
you
more
can do
sense,
that,
I think.
So it's a bit more almost produced as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Otherwise,
absolutely.
you have clips of me going, hello.
Hello.
Sounds
So
so
sweet.
hello there.
But you know, there are ways of marketing. So like there's lots. So Biteable as an example. I think it's on Biteable. You can do it. You can create a video that has your voice clip playing over it, and it creates like a sound wave over the image. Why is Pam
It's all
doing
going to end
I
well
don't
for
know.
me.
Why is she laughing?
I'm just having visions of, I mean, I'm already playing around with this. This will be sending that over to my client with my voice on it. Oh, you're like, what is this, Pam?
You have lovely melodic tones, Pam.
Hey, everyone. Yes. Yeah, can't imagine his face.
But yeah,
I won't be doing that. Don't
create
worry.
like images with like a voice wave, a sound wave on them, and with the audio playing. So it's just, I think it's things like that. It's just making it easier for people to produce. So and I can see it being a case of, the next rollout, the next update will be that you can upload an image to go with it as well, rather than just having that sort of standard Twitter kind of template that it's got, where it's just your avatar in the middle of it. So yeah, like I say, it's interesting. It's one of those things I'm quite excited by, but I think a lot of our clients are they're probably, until they've seen it in action, they're probably going to go, yeah, and but I think it's going to have a lot of power. I really do.
It's the same with a lot of stuff that comes through, though, isn't it, that we see in marketing? You get some people who are early adopters and others that are a bit later to the party, and they want to see, like you say, see how it works first. So
Paul's asked, is it just on the app, or is it desktop and browser? From memory, I think it's just on the app. I don't remember seeing anything about it being on the browser, but it's maybe I should dig out the link to the article. It's literally, I think it was about, I want to say about 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock last night that it was announced. So yeah, I've not had loads and loads and loads of time to dig into it and read about it from different sources. I've only really read from 2 sources so far, but as far as I'm aware, it is only on the Twitter app. Cool. Okie dokie. So what have we got coming up? We've got some webinars coming up. We've got actually the rest of today and tomorrow are fairly quiet for me, thankfully.
Don't say that. It's kiss of death.
Next week, well, I'm saying quite, I've got lots of client meetings, but like one-to-one rather than, like I said, I presented on LinkedIn this morning for Chartered Institute of Insurers, or Chartered Insurers Institute, can't remember now, CII anyway, and there were like 100 insurance professionals on that, and I was talking about LinkedIn, and it's quite exhausting presenting in that way, and like in a webinar scenario. But I've got a break from that for a couple of days now, which is quite nice. Lots of one-to-one appointments working with people, which is which I love. But Pam, we've got some webinars coming up, haven't we?
Ask me what they are.
You saw Pam's face then go,
Okay.
I mean, really, I should know. Isn't one about social media updates? We're going to do a wrap up of social media updates from the last quarter or so.
Yeah, it's sort of marketing updates. That's next. That's the 23rd, I think. I'm going from memory here.
It is the 23rd.
That one is at lunchtime. Yeah. So we've got that one on the 23rd. That's kind of like an update of marketing trends that have gone on in the last quarter and kind of what to expect coming up and how to kind of utilize them. And then, gosh, this is literally going from the brain, not from what I'm looking at. We've got one on the 25th.
MailChimp.
Which, oh yeah, that's how to use effective email marketing on MailChimp, I think. I should maybe look it up.
Oh, Pam, you're winning.
Didn't you just put the link into that this morning?
I literally did, but I've been busy since then. So I'm not the only part.
I got off delivering the webinar at like 11:20, and then I had a phone call, and I got off the phone call at about 11:45, 10 to 12. And in between, and whilst you guys were coming online, I saw the conversation, and I thought that was you wanted to mention it in the web. So that's because I did.
Oh, I see.
I thought that's what that was about, but obviously clearly not.
I can
thought
tell you
you
what they
wanted
are.
to
I'm now
make
looking at
it
them.
in
We've
today's
got
good.
it's effective email marketing strategies for business owners on the 25th of June at 6:30. And we've got how to implement a guest blogging strategy, which will be a really good one as well. That's the 29th of June at 12:15. Ta-da!
Amazing.
Brilliant.
If we can just edit that little bit out, like, you know, just before.
God, we knew not to put me on the spotlight.
I love that Paul has just asked, is Pam you?
No.
Aw.
I just like to prep well before things, that's all.
Cool. Okay, guys. Well, yeah. Has anyone got anything else, or shall we wrap it up there? We're all
I
good?
think maybe next, well, what's happening next week? Do we have guests?
We do.
Yes, we do. We do. We've got Paul. We've got Paul next week.
Our
Yay.
resident stalker is coming on the screen.
Mr. Green is coming on
Mm.
next week to talk about all things networking and how, you know, transitioned online and
How to network online.
how amazing I will be on the Wednesday.
Yeah. If you pop it, Paul, next week, don't put Pam on the spot.
Oh, Paul has just added that our copywriting webinar on Monday, the one that I did with Kevin, was great. So thank you, Paul.
It was,
Really
yeah.
enjoyed delivering that one. So if anybody wants to catch the replay,
They
give us a
can't.
shout, basically.
Yeah, well, they can't unless they're in the coaching group.
That's true, but we can add that in there. But yeah, and if anyone's got any subjects they want us to talk about, then they can add them in the comments as well.
Yeah, I would actually add to that one on Monday. It was really, really useful. And yeah, Wise Kevin did have some actually really good tips that I'd never heard before. And so I made a note of some of them as well.
And so did Amanda.
So did Amanda. So yes, so you did. Of course you did, yes.
Amanda.
I was thinking that. I was like,
Okay.
I'll let this play out.
No, just I go now. Can we edit
It's a
that?
lunch break.
We might need some of those Photoshop skills to cut that bottom quadrant out.
Just cut that
Kevin
bit.
might be able to edit that bit out. But just a blank space.
Oh, she's had a long day.
It's been a long week.
Oh dear, love you really.
Love you too.
Oh, that was funny.
On that note, now I'm getting abuse on the comments as well.
Yeah. Also, was Amanda there?
She was there.
You did a splendid job of chairing it and keeping things flowing.
I think you did an excellent job, Amanda.
Thank you, Emily.
Did you watch it though? No, I'm kidding.
I was busy. It's not because I didn't want to watch it. I had other work to do that Christina told me to do.
You could have watched
I
the
imagined
webinars.
that you were excellent.
There's two things, okay, that right now I need to say. So, firstly, I really need Amanda right now. Okay? And secondly, we really need to wrap up before we do any more damage. So thank you to anyone tuning in. Really, really appreciate you joining us, and thanks, guys. I think this has been a really good one. So thank you, and we'll see everyone at 12 noon next week for the next live lunch with Mr. Paul Green.
Yay!
Cool. See you then. Bye now.
Bye.